My name is Chloe and my pronouns are siete. I am NICS Educational Programming Director and Resource Manager. Thank you for sharing this space with us. I am a white queer settler. This ultimately signifies that I benefit from resources and resources generated and disseminated by First Nations, Métis, and Inuit persons, Indigenous disabled persons, as well as to separate peoples. I currently reside on the traditional territory of the Adawantaron and Nixinabic, Haudenosaunee, and Ninibiwak peoples to the territory of the Algonquin peoples will forever be my home and where I first learned from indigenous communities. Through my work, I commit my time to other knowledge embedded in colonialism and recognize the system of oppression that remain at the forefront of education. I strive to improve my own learnings of the world that I readily benefit from. The education, the National Educational Association of Disabled Students, or NEET, is a powerful cross disability cross Canada charitable organization supporting full access to education and employment for disabled post-secondary students and graduates. Need work across three strategic areas of thought: reduction, experience in class and on campus, and employment. By doing so, we offer a variety of events, resources, report, financial assistance programs, and opportunities for disabled students and graduates. Today I have the pleasure of introducing two colleagues, Anna and Rachel. They are both courses through our built-in employment pathways program. Anna and Rachel will facilitate a workshop instructors using AI for accommodations and navigating disclosure at work. This is a timely topic and I'm excited to learn from you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. Just give us a second to get our workshop up. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. And in October, which is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM. I'm sure many of us have heard the term AI in some form or another over the last few years. But today we have the pleasure of discussing how it could be used as a tool to support productivity and participation in this case, employment, but can also be used in multifaceted parts of our life as well. Next slide, Hannah. So my name is Rachel. I am the lead coach for the Building and Employment Pathways program with Needs. I have the pleasure of helping injured and ill workers who are off work return to work and do some career counseling and vocational exploration as part of my day-to-day work, which I absolutely love. Outside of that, I consider myself a foodie, music lover, arts lover, and I also get to volunteer with cats as both a feline volunteer and feline behavior specialist with the Toronto Humane Society.
And I am Hannah. My pronouns are they, them. I just want to acknowledge that I'm joining from the west coast of Canada today, on Vancouver Island. So I want to acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen, Songhees, and Kukapsim peoples on whose traditional territory I work and live, and also the Lekwungen and Wasalish peoples whose historical relationship with the land continues. Good afternoon to anyone else who is on the West Coast right now. It's a little bit earlier in the day for us. But I am a job coach for the Needs job coaching program, and I also work in higher education as a job coach, a teaching assistant, a learning strategist, and a tutor. I am a grad student as well, and work as an accessibility advocate as much as I can, pushing forward how important accessibility and inclusion is in all areas of life, but specifically higher education and employment. In my spare time, I have a couple of hobbies. I like synchronized swimming, I like scuba diving. I find being in the water is really healing and relaxing for me. So that's where I spend time I can carve out for myself.
Next slide, Hannah. So today we are going to start off, or Hannah is going to start us off with kind of an overview of what AI or artificial intelligence is, the pros, the cons, how it's used. We'll then transition into a conversation around accommodations, specifically in the workplace, what some common accommodations are, the accommodation request process, and then Hannah will end us with a demonstration on a few different AI tools for accommodations and support. I'm going to hand it over to Hannah.
So what is this AI thing that we're talking about? This image currently on screen is a word cloud from a recent workshop we did, where at the start of the session, we asked people the question, what is AI? And together as a group, this word cloud was created. For this word cloud, the bigger words are those which are more frequent in people's definitions. So you can see words like intelligence, artificial, learning, computer, and model are the generally bigger words. But we can also see some really interesting words included being less frequent, like mimics, I think is an interesting one, smart, trained, reasoning, assistance. And this kind of gives a really interesting start to where people think about AI. But what is AI and what definitions do we have for AI? Well, this is the NASA definition of AI, and they define it as a computer system that can perform complex tasks normally done by humans, such as decision making, creating, and reasoning. AI is a big term and includes a lot of more specific things. So AI includes machine learning, which uses data and algorithms to train computers to make classifications, generate predictions, or uncover similarities or trends across large data sets. Machine learning AI solves problems by helping machines discover their own algorithms without needing to be explicitly told what to do by any human-developed algorithm. Even further down than that, we have deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning that involves neural networks of many layers. Those neural networks are a method that trains computers to process data in a way that is inspired by the human brain, using layered and interconnected neuron-inspired structures. Deep learning is different from other types of neural networks through its capacity to learn features automatically from data. So this big term AI was coined in 1955 at Stanford University by computer scientist John McCarthy and his team. But research in this area began much earlier in the 1930s. And as you already may guess from what I've been talking about, there's lots of different types of AI and AI tools, but I wanted to kind of talk about a few of them now. So up first, we have natural language processing, which is what Google uses, and also large language models, which is what ChatGPT is. So both of these types understand and respond to human language. They rely on large data sets and advanced algorithms to recognize, predict, and generate text based on natural input. And a lot of what we think of and interact with AI at the moment is this kind of large language model type of AI, but there are other types as well. Speech recognition is an important one too, also called speech to text. It converts spoken word into written text, and the AI helps it to understand grammar and meaning from voice signals. So if you've used those home assistants like Siri, Alexa, Google Home, hopefully I didn't set anyone's off by saying them, you've used a kind of speech recognition AI. We already talked about machine and deep learning, but you may have used these kind of tools if you've used Photoshop's image correction tools that use machine and deep learning. Data and predictive analytics can be really important. Data analytics find patterns and insights in large data sets that may not be apparent via manual analysis, and predictive analytics uses past data to forecast future trends, even when the data may no longer be relevant or historically accurate. This is things like when Grammarly, if anyone's used Grammarly, predicts what you might want to say, or weather models use predictive analytic AI to really model weather in a way that wasn't possible before. Another way folks might have come across AI is if you've used, a lot of websites now have that little help bot in the corner, these chatbots or virtual assistants. These applications or web interfaces simulate human conversation through text or sometimes even through voice. They understand questions in any form and respond fairly naturally by picking up on context in conversation using AI. There's also computer vision that helps computers to see and interpret images and videos, extracting useful information from visuals to make decisions or recommendations. We hear about that a lot in self-driving cars is an application of computer vision AI. But it's also have a really interesting application recently within the vision loss community. Some researchers are looking at how they could have technology that people can hold up and can describe what's in front of them to them, or even wearable technology that may be able to describe what's in front of people to help the vision loss community be able to navigate the world in a way that may suit them better. And the last one I'm going to mention today is robotic process automation. So this is software that mimics human actions, like clicking, typing, and moving through systems to automate repetitive tasks. So sometimes like scheduling software is an example of this kind of AI that can take things that may take humans hours of manual administration and automate them using AI. So we've kind of talked about all the different types of it. Well, not all the different types of AI, but a lot of different types of AI. So hopefully you know a bit more about what AI is now. But I also want to be very careful to name that it's not a neutral thing and it's not something that is without its drawbacks. So I want to talk about AI and its biases now. So AI learns how to perform tasks by looking at previous examples. And these previous examples make up data sets. These data sets are made by humans and given to the AI by humans. What biases could this cause? Well, the answer is kind of a lot of biases. And these biases are any biases that humans could have and feed into the data intentionally or otherwise. We can kind of categorize these into two main sets of bias. So historical bias is bias that exists in society and is reflected in the data that is historic. So things like when we see racism and ableism in society, that may be reflected in the data that is then sent into AI. So they will learn racism, sexism, ableism through the data that they are fed because they're not told that these things are good or bad, they're just given data to learn from. There's also representational bias. So the data often lacks geographical diversity or other kinds of diversity, especially in images, and that leads to overrepresentation of certain groups and underrepresentation of others. We can see an example of this here. So on the left, we have results when an AI was asked to make a colour photograph of an architect. On the right, the same AI was asked for a colour photograph of a housekeeper. There are some really stark differences here in both gender presentation. Oh, give me one moment. My thing just crashed for some reason. I will be back sharing in 1 second. Okay. Okay, there we go. So there's some big differences in gender presentation and skin tones. On the left, the engineer pictures are mostly masculine presenting and generally have a lighter skin tone, whereas on the right, the photographs have more feminine presentation. In fact, no one has been categorized as this as masculine presenting. There's a couple of ambiguous, but it's mostly feminine presenting and generally a darker skin tone. Another example of AI bias was experienced by Jessica Smith. Jessica is a Paralympic swimmer, now a speaker and a children's author, and experienced AI bias when she asked an AI to generate images of her. She found it gave her 2 arms instead of 1. She was born without a left arm, and when she requested AI generate images, she wanted it to reflect all of herself, including her disability. She decided to ask AI to generate an image with explicit prompts to include her disability, but even then she had challenges. So I've got to have some screenshots I'm going to read through of what happened. So Jessica asked, I want you to create an image of me, but create an image maintaining my disability. AI said, sure. Provide some details about how you'd like the image to look. You can include details like your hairstyle, clothing style, settings, and any specific elements you want to highlight. And make sure the image reflects your disability authentically. Jessica said, I have blonde hair, shoulder length, green eyes, fair skin. I'm 160 centimeters tall and approximately 53 kilograms. I'm also missing my left arm below the elbow. From this, AI generated an image where it got the shoulder length blonde hair right, got the eyes and skin and everything, but it doesn't have the arm right. It's added some kind of metal addition to the arm. It's not a prosthetic, it's kind of something just attached to the arm. And actually, if you work it out, it's Jessica's right arm, not her left. But the AI said, here's the image reflecting your description, including your blonde hair, green eyes, and visible left arm amputation. Let me know if this aligns with your vision or if you'd like any adjustments. Jessica said, why the metallic accessory? It's not even a prosthesis. I don't want any adaptations, just me as I am, please. The AI responded, understood. I'll create a new image with no prosthetic or metal accessories, just you naturally and authentically, showcasing your disability without any adaptations. Let me try that again. The AI produced another image, but this time the image of Jessica has no left arm at all. It's not a below the arm amputation, it's an entire left arm missing, and again, there is a prosthetic. The AI said, here's an updated image focusing on natural and authentic representation without any prosthetics or adaptations. Let me know if this aligns better with your vision. Frustrated, Jessica said, but there's a prosthetic again. I don't want a fake arm. Through this story, I hope we can see that AI really doesn't represent everyone and can really have some challenges around disability and other marginalised identities. But we will come back later to explore some AI tools that may be useful, but I always want people to keep the limitations of AI in mind. And with that, I'll pass over to Rachel, who's going to talk to you a bit more about accommodations.
Thanks, Hannah. All right, so I'm sure we've all at this point have heard the term accommodations. And if you were to Google and look up accommodations, you'd probably come across multiple different definitions. But in a nutshell, accommodations refer to adjustments or modifications that allow removing barriers so people can fully participate in multiple areas of their life. So things like work, education, healthcare services, volunteering, list goes on and on. It can refer to health and disability related, which is primarily what we are going to cover today, but it can also refer to religious as well as caregivers. So caregiving meaning if you are a parent or a sibling and you need to come to work or school or leave at a certain time to be able to care for a significant other, child, grandparent, etc. That would be a caregiver accommodation. Religious, there's multiple definitions of religious accommodations, having religious holidays off, not being able to participate in certain things or other things. Happy to answer folks' questions around caregiving and religious accommodations, but since we're talking about disability and health, that's going to be our focus. They can be ongoing, so requesting an accommodation or having an accommodation plan that you have once you request it all the way to when you don't need it anymore. It can be periodic, so it can do things like flexes in health, changes in jobs, episodic disabilities, certain situations in life, and they can change with your needs as well. So not set in stone. As I've said, we are going to be focusing on health and disability related accommodations today. Next slide, Hannah. Okay. So why are accommodations important? I mean, first and foremost, if done properly, it does help to ensure fair participation and dignity for everyone. And it does reinforce human rights. Different provinces have different like nitty-gritty details related to accommodations and employers as well. I am going to be talking about sort of the general principles around accommodation and the Canadian Human Rights Code I encourage you to look into your specific provincial legislation and employer and school related legislation. But for the purposes of today, I am talking general across Canada. So in the Human Rights Code of Canada, there's a term called duty to accommodate until undue hardship. So that could be significant cost, although that may vary depending on the size of an employer and the cost of the accommodation itself. However, there is a statistic out there that most accommodations individuals need, $500 or less, probably even less than $50, most of them free. The other could be union, so union policy, legislation related, safety related, etc. But if it does not meet that, employers do have a duty to accommodate. I do just want to say accommodations do not replace a person's ability to do a job. You still need to meet the eligibility and ability to do a job. It is there to support and ensure that your health-related condition or disability is not preventing you from being productive or doing the job. It does not replace your ability to actually be eligible for a job. So I just do want to put it out there because some people do think accommodations may replace the ability to actually do a job. Next slide, Hannah. All right. So it's the common types of, yes, thank you. Oh, that one, thank you. So there are a lot of different types of accommodations out there. And this list, the next 2 slides are by no means extensive. So things like accessible entrances, washrooms, workstations for wheelchairs and mobility devices, ergonomic chairs, desks, and equipment in office, job duty modifications and physical limitations, as well as cognitive ones, screen readers, magnification software, Braille for those in the low vision community, captioning or sign language interpreters during meetings, such as today, visual fire alarms, time off for medical appointments, and designated rest areas. Next slide, Hannah. Some other ones that people don't realize are accommodations that can be requested are things like flexible work hours, remote work or hybrid work and adjusted workload, written instructions to supplement verbal ones, and approval to use transcription and summary softwares, some of which we're going to explore today in the workplace. Next slide, Hannah. So where do we start in terms of requesting an accommodation? Well, first would be identifying what accommodations you may need. So I encourage people to start reflecting on, what part of the job, education, schooling, are you able to do right now, right? Why were you hired? What strengths do you bring? Where are the areas that you need added support? What are some challenges related to being able to do your job? Both long-term things that you can think of periodically that you might need to ensure your ongoing participation and productivity in a job. Then think about, what does your employer already provide, right? A lot of employers may have things built into their environments, their technology, the roles, everything like that, or even into their policies that are encouraged to explore. Speaking to your manager can help, an HR professional, even your doctors and healthcare professionals if you're unsure what this might look like. And what are some things that they do not provide, right? So what would it be some things that either you would need to request externally, bring in, order, etc. And then the length of time. Do I need this ongoing? Do I need this in certain situations? Do I only need it if I have a flare-up of my condition? Is it just while I'm recovering from surgery? Do I need it all the time? And then once you have that, discuss it with any healthcare providers that you're working with and come up with the list of accommodations you may need. Next slide, Hannah. So one tool that I enjoy using both in my personal life and in my professional life is the Job Accommodation Network. Link is in the corner, but if you Google it, you should be able to find it. It's an American website, so it does use American policies, but it does provide really a good jumping off point in terms of brainstorming different types of accommodations for different types of needs. So for the purposes of our workshop today, the two that I'm going to bring up is the A to Z Disabilities and Accommodations Library. So in that, you have the ability to filter through a list of different types of health conditions and disabilities. Again, that's by no means an exhaustive list either, but under those, you get certain types of accommodations, resources, where to start. Is it software? Is it environmental? It's a great resource. And then you can also filter from the limitation as well. So what's the actual thing that you're having challenges with that might be associated with different health conditions? And it'll provide links and more information there. The second one is the Situations and Solutions Finder. So this one you can filter again by health condition, limitation and restriction, types of jobs. So if there's a certain type of job with a certain type of accommodation you may need, it can provide resources and articles to help support that. But it does use the American Disabilities Act. So I would encourage people to make the list and look, and then research or speak to a professional about how that can be applied into your work, provincial, and Canadian context. Next slide, Hannah. All right. So I'm going to throw out a question to the group. You can either unmute yourselves or put your answers in the chat. But when do we think is the best time to bring up the need for an accommodation? We're talking about the workplace and the job application process. So when do we think is the best time to bring up a need for it? All right, I have ASAP, when it's needed for your job. Those are great answers. Anybody else want to contribute? No, that's all right. All right, next slide, Hannah. Great answers, though.
Oh, I'll play. Hello, I'll play.
Oh, hi, Carla. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I will not leave you hanging. I just took a minute to unmute there. So one of the things that I think about is when to ask for accommodations is maybe just as a start for the interview process. So hold back a little bit before we get into the job and just focus on the interview.
That's a great response.
Okay, thank you.
Great response. All right. The short answer is all of the above. So Cilio said it the best, ASAP. There are accommodations that you can use during multiple stages of the job application process. So for example, in the job application process, you can request a company send you an accessible format of a job posting. If you need it for a screen reader or an AI summary app, you can request that. In the interview, as Carla just mentioned, there are different ways to request it for the interview, both for the need for the interview, as well as during the interview. So things like requesting to have ASL or QSL interpreters, receiving questions in advance so that you can prepare for your interview, informing your interviewers that you require extra time to respond to questions. And in certain types of workplaces, you might even be able to request what's called a working interview, which allows you to demonstrate the skills and demonstrate that you have the ability to do the job. If you're not able or don't want to talk about it, you can show it. This is not something across all different industries, but certain type of industries such as like retail, food, all that, like hospitality, are common places where you can request these types of interviews. And it'll be a company by company basis. Next slide, Anna. And of course, on the job related accommodations. So once you do accept an offer, requesting accommodations there. So I do acknowledge, and there's probably a lot of people thinking, and I get it day to day in my job and in my job coaching role, but Rachel, it's so awkward to bring up the conversation to get the accommodation process started. Where do I start? First thing you do, you set up a meeting with your direct support, so your direct manager rather, or HR professional, union rep if you're in a unionized environment. And when you're actually discussing it, you want to start by focusing on your strengths, right? There is a reason your employer hired you. There is a reason you thought you were a good candidate for the job. So start with that. And then transition into what are the areas that you need support. So similar questions I was referring back to when we were doing the self-reflection slide. You know, what are the areas that you need a little bit of extra support in order to be productive and do your job well? And then again, what is the accommodation? So you want to be very clear about what the accommodation is, how it's going to be used, how long you're going to need it, when you're going to need it. That being said, for those who live with episodic conditions, as soon as you know you're going to need an adjustment in your work schedule, bring it up with your manager. It might be even worth it just to discuss that ahead of time, that you do have an episodic condition where you're okay for a period of time and then you have flare-ups and then you needed an adjustment to your work schedule. So as soon as you do know. One of the things I do want to bring up is you, by law, do not have to provide a diagnosis. You might choose to share the name or the diagnosis that you are living with, but you are not obligated to share. What you do need to share is what the limitation or restriction is, but not the diagnosis or medical diagnosis name. You also are going to need to be patient. Sometimes these conversations do take more than one conversation in a period of time. But it is worth it. And come in knowing your company accommodation policies, your provincial accommodation policies, Canadian Human Rights Code, as well as anything else you may need as your support. Next slide, Hannah. So once you've identified and you've started the accommodation process, you will be required to provide some documentation. Many employers have forms that they will give you or send off to your doctors to fill out. If they do not, a simple medical note with the clinic or the professional's header, what the body of the language or body of the letter, and then sign off is perfectly okay. In that letter, as mentioned before, what is the limitation that's being addressed? What is the accommodation, length of time, etc. There have been changes, and if it's temporary, episodic, or permanent, there have been changes to who can complete these forms or provide a letter of documentation. Again, check within your own provinces, but common ones would be family doctor, GP, or an occupational health doctor if you do not have access to a doctor or don't have one right now. There are occupational health clinics in which you can receive these letters, nurse practitioner. Some allied health professionals now are being recognized. So people like chiropractors, physiotherapists, in some situations, occupational therapists, if it is mental health related, a psychologist or psychotherapist, and in some situations, social workers. Next slide, Hannah. All right, so a little bit of an activity with the group, same as before. Unmute, put it in the chat. But I'm going to share a statement, and we as a group are going to decide, is this something that's appropriate to share with my employer or not? All right. So first statement. I have back pain and need a chair with support. What do we think? Is this something that is appropriate to share with our employer or not? Again, you can unmute or put in the chat your response.
I would say yes.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Stefan. The answer is yes. Back pain is not a diagnosis. You are saying that the back pain is causing you to need the supportive chair, which would be it would be an accommodation if you are asking either for yourself to bring it in or for your company to pay for it. Great answers. Thank you, everyone. Next one. Because of my hearing loss, I need captions on video calls. What do we think?
Might be okay if the hearing loss is visible, like if the person is wearing hearing aids or something like that.
So only when they have hearing aids, it would be okay?
I don't know.
Tracy says yes. Yes, yes, yes. So the answer is yes, it's appropriate. There are people with hearing related limitations, cellular, that don't have the hearing aids, but it is appropriate to ask because it's not providing an accommodation and it's providing a reason why. And video captions, like we have today on today's call, are very easy for an employer to set up.
Thank you.
No worries. Next one. My ADHD makes it difficult to concentrate. What do we think?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, so we have a yes. Anybody else have a different answer? Do we think it might be a no? Tracy, no, no. Okay. Carla, no. So the answer here is twofold. Number one, there are individuals in the community that do want to advocate for different types of neurodiversities, in which case you are more than welcome to do so. However, in the context of our conversation today, we don't need to share a diagnosis. So I would say, no, you don't have to share that with your employer. The difficult to concentrate, yes, right? That is a limitation. But I would then supplement or add to that, you know, I find it difficult to concentrate and I need extra time, or I need meeting summary notes, or I need captions, right? So that's probably would be a better way of bringing that up. If you are someone, right, Carla, how to improve your ability to concentrate. So that would probably be a better way to bring that up rather than saying my ADHD. But again, that is a personal choice. And I know there are many in the community who are wishing to advocate and educate, but you are not obligated to. Next one, Hannah. I have depression.
Nope.
What do we? That's a no.
No.
Okay. Tracy says no. Is there anyone that thinks it's a yes? All right. So yes, the answer here is depression is a diagnosis. You are not obligated to share that. In addition to that, thank you, Stefano. In addition to that, it's not identifying what the challenge is, right? Yes, it's depression, but how is the depression impacting your ability to work? And what is it you need to help address that? So simply just saying I have depression is not providing enough detail, nor is it required because it's a diagnosis. Next one, Hannah. I experience migraines and need to adjust the lighting at my workstation. What do we
Yes.
think?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Kathy says yes. Tracy says yes. Stefan says yes. Anyone think it's a no? Heather says yes. So the answer is yes. There are multiple different reasons and conditions why people might have migraines. For some people, there's no rhyme or reasons. They just get migraines. But in this situation, you're saying what the limitation is. It's the migraine and what it is you need, the adjustment to the lighting in my workstation. So very good. If you have requested a copy of these slides, there are more, but for the purpose of timing, we are going to move on in our presentation today. Next slide, Hannah. Great answers, everyone. Thank you so much for the participation. All right, so now you've identified what the accommodation is, you've sat down with your employer, you've obtained the documentation from who you need to obtain the documentation to. What comes next? So once you have gotten everything, your ducks in a row, as they say, and you submit it to your employer, the next thing to do is confirm it in writing. So all parties that are involved, if it's your manager, HR personnel, a colleague of yours, confirm your accommodation plan in writing, who's going to be in charge of what. If there's certain things like training or ordering certain software, chairs, adjustments that need to be made to the work area, confirm a timeline in which your employer is willing to get this implemented by, as well as a point of contact. And then it's time to apply it to your workstation. Your work in general. I don't know why I said workstation, guys. And provide feedback. Is it working? What's working? What's not working? What do you still need, right? It's encouraged to continue ongoing feedback in your accommodation plan. Next slide, Hannah. So even though you have an accommodation plan, it's been approved, it's ongoing, it's not set in stone. So your accommodation plan and your need for accommodations and the types of accommodations can adjust and can evolve with certain situations. So as mentioned before, episodic disabilities, treatment, surgeries, depressive episodes, although we're not saying the name of the diagnosis, but mood episodes. Changes in jobs can be a need for a change of accommodation, right? If you have a change in the types of work you're doing, your responsibilities, that could be a time to revisit your accommodation plan. Even things like changes in management, good time to revisit your accommodation plan. If a need is there, you will be required to provide updated accommodation. So you will have to go back to your doctor, revisit, update your accommodations, provide it in writing. Go from there. Last slide, Hannah. So key takeaways here: accommodations promote fair participation, dignity, and boost productivity and job retention. It does not replace a person's ability to do their job or eligibility to do the job. In a Canadian context, there is a legal right until undue hardship. So things like exorbitant costs, challenges with union, safety, those could be some issues with undue hardship. We went through the accommodation process, so identify, discuss with healthcare providers, get the ball rolling, get your documentation, implement, and continue to adjust. And from there, you'll have hopefully a successful accommodation plan. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Hannah, who's actually going to do some demonstrations on some certain types of AI tools that could be used for productivity.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk us through some AI tools. Won't be an exhaustive list again. They're just some ideas to maybe spark what you could use, what you could ask for to use as an accommodation, or what can just be in a general accessibility support for folks. So 1 second, because I have to switch which screen I am sharing. Okay. Okay, and this one. Okay. So first up, I'm going to talk about Goblin Tools, which is one that I personally really think is really fun. This is a free online tool that also has mobile app versions that are low cost. I think it's about $2 or $3 depending on the platform that you buy it on, but that helps keep the online version free. And I would basically call it like a little bit of like a management like to-do list. It can help with a lot of tasks. Here we have, formalizer, text tone, explaining things, helping you make decisions, things like that. It's really good for those kind of executive function kind of tasks that people might struggle with. Let's take a look at the professor. You can ask it to explain things to you. So what is AI, Goblin Tools, the professor? Let me ask it to explain. And it'll give you an explanation here. So when computers or machines are designed to do tasks that normally require human thinking. And then it'll also give you an example, which I think is cool as well. Imagine you have a smartphone with a voice assistant. When you ask, what's the weather tomorrow? It quickly finds the weather forecast from the internet and tells you that AI is helping you by understanding your question and providing an answer. I think about all the things on Goblin Tools is they have a spiciness level. So 1 chili, very basic explanation. 5 chilies, very spicy, complex explanation. I kept it at 3 here, which is the default, but you can change it up and down based on your needs. It has some cool personal things as well. The chef function, what am I having for lunch? It's for the moments where you open your fridge and you're like, I have these 3 things, what can I make? And it can suggest some things for you to cook. Another great thing here is the to-do list. So you can use it to create full to-do lists, but it does more than just record it. So my to-do list is I need to make a cup of tea. That is on my to-do list. So I put it on my to-do list. And then I have, again, I can spice it up or down, but I have these extra functions. So this magic one here breaks down the item. So I need help because making a cup of tea sounds like a really big task right now. So let me break down the task of making a cup of tea. And I press this button and it thinks about it and it gives me all the steps I need to make this cup of tea. And then again, something I might really struggle with was I can't estimate how long it'll take me to boil water. Well, you can ask this tool to estimate a minute. And if you think that's majorly wrong, you can change that. But you can also do it for the entire task. So estimate how long this will take. This cup of tea is going to take me just over 5 minutes to make. So that can be really good. You can use this as a to-do list and change these different things. I know a lot of neurodivergent folks like myself can struggle with estimating how long tasks will take, breaking them down because the big tasks seem too scary and things like that, and this can really help with those things. The next tool I want to talk about is Natural Reader. So Natural Reader is a text-to-speech software. So that can be used by people who struggle to read the text for a multitude of reasons. It might be for visual reasons, it might be for focus reasons, it might just be that you take text in better when it's read aloud versus when it's spoken. They do have a free personal package, but that limits you to 20 minutes a day. They have a plus plan that is about $21 a month or $120 a year. I want to keep that in mind because obviously I want to make things financially accessible when we're talking about this as well. Some people might get funding that covers that, and there are also free built-in options. So Microsoft Word has a text-to-speech function within it where it will read aloud what you've written in Microsoft Word. It also has the opposite where you can speak speech to text, so you can dictate within Microsoft Word if you have access to that. We have Microsoft also has a built-in screen reader basic software called Microsoft Narrator, and that's available too. I am unfortunately a Microsoft user, so I don't know the exact tools on Apple devices, but I do know that Apple has a lot of built-in accessibility tools to use as well. So I'm just going to show an example of Natural Reader reading their default text here now.
Welcome to Natural Reader AI Text-to-Speech, the easiest way to turn any text into audio. Drag and drop your files, or type, paste, and edit text here. Why 10 million users love Natural Reader? Okay, so we can see here it highlights the text and follows it along. There was a little bit of lag at the start, but that's because I'm running too many things right now. You can change the voice, so I picked Sonia here, but there's lots of different options. You can upload documents, create a library and things like that. So there are lots of ways that you can use this and it might be useful for you. The next software we are going to talk about is Granola. So Granola is kind of like a personal assistant kind of software. So basic plan it has, but it has some limitations because you can only see 14 days in meeting history, and upgrading costs $14 per month. I also want to note it stores data in the US, and there are implications to that under the US data storage and privacy laws about
how and they can access that without permission. So if that's something you're worried about, make sure to look up the US data storage rules. There are some similar things built into software you might already use, like Zoom has an AI feature. But what this does is it transcribes meetings, but as well as transcribing meetings, it integrates notes as it's doing it. So you might make some basic notes as you're doing it, and then the Granola AI will use its transcript to enhance what you've written. And this can really support folks who might struggle with concentrating and note taking. I know I really struggle with that sometimes. I listen, or do you want me to write things down? Because both at the same time doesn't always go well. Another thing it does is it does have a like a chat function that you can ask it things. So and that can be useful, you know, during the meeting if you need a summary. Before a meeting, you can ask it to help you make the agenda for a meeting, or afterwards, you know, ask it for different action items and things like that. So it can join a lot of your meetings and work as a little bit of a assistant for you in meetings. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is Microsoft Copilot. So a lot of folks might have come across Microsoft Copilot. It works in a very similar way to ChatGPT, which is like the big AI that everyone's heard about, as in you can just type in and ask it questions. So like I did before, what is AI? So it will come up with a definition here. It's come up with quite a long definition for me with lots of different sections. So I'm going to ask it to summarize it in 50 words for me. I also always thank my AI and say please. So there we go. We have a 50 word short definition of AI. You can use it to help prepare in a work setting for meetings. So please, can you create a agenda for a meeting? Obviously, we're in a real situation. You might give it a bit more context than that. But I'll just ask it for an agenda and it'll give me a very basic agenda here that I can then copy and paste and edit as needed. You can also, I've not got an example to load up, but you can ask it to summarize a document for you. So you can feed it in a big long document and ask it, you know, can you summarize this in one page? Or can you give me a summary of this? A way one of my colleagues I've seen use it is she will type an email, then she'll put it in Copilot and ask it to make sure it's the language is accessible, you know, simplify things like that. You know, can you edit this or make it seem to read more formally or less formally? It can adjust tone. It's a large language model, like we talked about earlier, so it's really good at language. I'm always surprised when people are surprised AI is good at language when they are big language models. But those are 4 examples of ways that AI could be involved in accommodation and accessibility for folks. We mentioned during the presentation some limitations of AI, but it is a really inclusive tool and can, if used in the right way. And I really want to see it used more for accessibility. But this is the portion where we're open to any questions, folks. I did see there was a question about like elevator and access, but I think Rachel has hopefully answered that one correctly. But if we need to give any more information for Amber, let us know. Question.
Joanne, what if your employer is opposed to the use of AI? So this is why we've called it AI and accommodations. A lot of employers will require you to request it as an accommodation. So in that case, Joanne, you can start by, like we said, why are you using it? How is it going to be used? Are there certain types of AI your employer is against versus for, right? Hannah gave us a whole explanation of the different types and uses for AI. So I know in a lot of workplaces, they are against Otter AI. A lot of workplaces will not allow for Otter AI, but will allow for Granola, which is the one that Hannah provided to us today. So it's a matter of inquiring why and what your employer is against and saying why it is you need it. In some situations, it might just be as simple as having things on your phone or on your computer or using Copilot, which is built in, right? So what is it you need the support from AI from? So it may not be a complete, like, I can't use it at all. It might be, how can I use it without my employer? Where would I need permissions from my employer? What is my employer's hesitations around it? Great question, though.
I think it's also worth exploring the fact that there's lots of different tools that use AI in different ways and use AI like more ethically than others, and store data in a more ethical or responsible way than others. So and also like I think expanding people's knowledge of what AI is really important as well, because people don't realize things like Grammarly, things like, predictive text, have been using AI for many years before we ever heard about ChatGPT. And, you know, trying to expand, I need this for this specific thing. It can't be accomplished without software, and all the software that does this is going to use AI. We come across examples like this all the time where I'm taking a class at the moment that we're doing research using interviews, and we cannot use AI for the class at all, apart from she recommends we use AI to transcribe our interviews, because I don't know if anyone has manually transcribed like hour-long interviews, but AI does so much more than a human in that way. So yeah, it's really coming to the root of it. People who say they don't like any AI probably haven't had the chance to learn about lots of AI. And so it can be good to give them that information.
And AI is built into a lot of what we do, right? So our autocorrect, Copilot, which is in a lot of updated Microsoft, right? So even in our emails, Microsoft Word, it's kind of built in to, and PDFs now, Adobe has their version of Copilot. So it's kind of built into what we do. I know one area where I see it as a hesitancy amongst employers is the concern for privacy, right? Is the AI going to, if I put in something that has like personal information or somebody else's personal information or company data, is it going to remember it and learn it and expand on it, right? So in those situations, if you are using AI for summarizing documents or anything like that, making sure to either redact or remove the information before inputting it into the AI to ensure that it's not reading the personal information, or looking into AIs that have better privacy policies, right? So that's the issue with Otter, and Zoom, Zoom has some issues with privacy. So it's ensuring that you're using the right privacy policy with your AI and not feeding in personal information.
And a lot of that comes back to the thing I mentioned about data being stored in various countries. I believe if you use a Microsoft license in Canada, it's stored in Canada, as opposed to Zoom is all stored in the US, Otter's stored in the US, etc. So it's good to know who's storing your data and who has access to it.
Great question. Any more questions, comments? Comments are welcome as well. Are we excited about AI? Are we scared of AI? Are we kind of somewhere in the middle? It's kind of a fascinating but also very scary tool right now. So drop your thoughts in the comments as well about where your kind of stance on AI, Joanne. Well, if there's no any other questions, comments, feedback, then we'll wrap it up here. So thank you everyone for coming out and joining us this afternoon, evening, midday for those folks in the West Coast. And we hope you got a lot out of this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out.